Alright, that was good. Janju sim ge pen janju sim nyam su lemba ina janju sim ge de nyam su lemba ina nyagap dang tardo dang tarba dang tamji ki go bon tobe ge ni pen chimbo nyagap dire tardo tarba tamji ki go bon de pen ge chimbo yore se de san yu jumnen de yi no koran nyam su le nyam nang ni thwa nang su ya ze yu mi tu sha ya to son yore andi 마세 아니 산유 줌nen디기다 세계토 아니 개와 잠바당 아니 지게 시르보 가소레 지진 제메양이냐 아니 코로나주이나디 투시네 냠렌지 디토네 아니 줄이야 안전시스니 폐에 전유셈 안게지 냠술렘바이나 아니 친내갑다 타르도 담지기 먹고 모토발에 판도게 침보 요레스니 판인 받으면 송요레스 지제 디니자 줄이야 전유셈 아니 소소라니 내가 아니 지게 전유셈기 판인 퇴배제 퇴배되는 삼 아니 김제 망보 삼다 다지 제네 레버 다제 전유셈 셈게네 전유셈이 줘봐라 랩긴세바 직 동도 송지도 냠수 렘바 인자 다 전유셈디 지게 전유심 줘봐라 라비아다 전유심 냠는 제발라 퇴좀나 도바메바제 산주 고바마도 예바도 안녕수 랑고레 에세지 그 생각도 디고시로와.
Good evening. Last week we started with the fourth chapter, the chapter on conscientiousness. We looked at the first few verses wherein it was presented that the Buddha, in order to become a Buddha, had investigated the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, to see whether it was worth striving for. And he had come to the decision, both looking at the temporary benefits and in particular the final benefits that come with achieving bodhicitta. He strove to achieve it and thereby became a Buddha. Moreover, through his teachings and guidance, the other great bodhisattvas such as Maitreya and Manjushri, also following the Buddha's guidance, investigated the benefits of bodhicitta and also saw that the great, both temporary and in particular the final benefits of bodhicitta, and thereby praise bodhicitta. And so this is the example set now for us by the great beings. And we too, in the presentation we've already had, have come to hear about the many benefits of bodhicitta, both those that are short-term to be experienced in this life and lives to come, as well as those that lead to lasting happiness for oneself and others. So having thought about this in depth ourselves, and having come to the conclusion that we too want to join the ranks of the children of the Buddhas, we should guard this aspiration and ensure that we never let it degenerate, but strengthen it evermore.
갈데 디다 담잖아. 세드리도 아겨도 이렇게되나. 알아. 딘마로 갈데 디다 담잖아. 갈데 디다 담제네. 네. 레기 주버 마제나. 셈젠 데다 군류베 다교 주버 지르 규르세.
Starting with the fourth verse. If, having made such a promise, I do not perform the deeds, I will have betrayed all those sentient beings. What kind of migration would I then take?
Atisha ore da galde damje handedar damje ne lege dubar majena sedu chisnadang anzu deje janju sengye phanyen samda je ane phanyen samda dine janju simja tamjigi do sanjo koma thobala da janju simnyam sumalemba ane je sanjo koma thobya minu chine dine jinja da simja tamjigi sanjo koma thobar chigin sibe ane sem게네 마찬 sem제 탐지기도 나라 전주스미 제가 바로지만 랍기인스 케레 담자바제 sem제 탐지 상예설로 고인스네 케레 담자제 두시네 담자바레스 갈데데다 담제나 담제네 세야.
Looking at the first line, here now this follows on that having looked with our own analysis and investigation at the benefits of bodhicitta and given rise to the determination to become a bodhisattva, and perhaps even having generated aspiring bodhicitta, and thereby made a promise, I will become a Buddha for the sake of all suffering beings. So that's the meaning then of the first line. So this promise is this promise to become a Buddha.
Denige damjeba yinzang, and the Karche Gores Lamna, and the Legi, Trooper Machina, said the Chisada, Nyamsulenje, and the Gazore, Nyamsulenje, Nyamling Yuton, Nyamsulenje, Simjing Yutun, Pember Tuku Hore, Suzuki, Chanshu Sim Gomiata, Chanshu Sim Jova Parodisimba, Lavia, Dusin, Nyamsulenje, Nyamling Yutone, Shenli, Pember Tuku Hores, Nyamling Tuku Hores, then Nyamling Maduba Shashabaina. And then go Mares or Dagache to Kores, Maduba, and Tuku or Tamjada, Jigi, sitting a Simjat and San Yoko Motoba, Jigi, Simjat and San Yoko Mono, Gugi, Dishu, and Agent used to be sure Portum, Labgins, Killing, Damja was a Damchen and the Karcha or Nana, and Yamlingi to the Jajusimbi, and the Jajusem Yana, the Gomiata, Jajusim, Joe Porchima, to be a love. Gomia, Gom Jeshanlia, Pemba to Yalia, Yamlin Jogores or that, Yamlin Jogores.
The second line, I do not perform the deeds. So if having made such a promise, I do not perform the deeds. So this refers to the practitioner who has generated bodhicitta. They've become a bodhisattva. And they've made thereby a sincere and heartfelt promise. I will become a Buddha for the sake of others. But having made such a promise, and having generated aspiring bodhicitta, but then not engaging in the deeds or the activities for others, namely the 6 perfections, that would not be acceptable. How could one then fulfill this promise that one has recently made?
Karaki University, that Simjatam Sanjokovan Tovarashiki, Jenusem, Jenusim Joba, Lavin Simjatam Sanjokovan, Gugins in the Kalen, Damja, Damjene, and Jenusim Joba, Laviada, Jenusim Gomiala, Soban, Juven, Yamlengi, and the Chiki Maduba and the Majabaina, and the Karchago Resina, Simjan Deta, Gunlube, Dagi, Jova Chiragu, Simjan and Gunlube said, Simjan Tamje. And the Gotan was or the good lubes in the Gotan was or Simjan Tamjil, Cousin Simjan Tamjing is Sanjasala Quickie, Simjan Tamji Dondalangi, and the Jig Producer Juba, Legging Killing Baz, Simjan Tamjil, Pember Dugi said the Killing Barrage, another Killing Baz, Simjan Tamjig and the Pember Dugi said Killing, then Majabaina, and the Simjan Tamjilo Gotan was Lubares, Simjan did a good lubes. 지상 고었다 봐야 다 되는 심전 탐죠 고었다 봐야 배 녀바 침보레스 녀바 침보 인자 니기다 되는게 녀바 침보 싸봐 인자 안디 개와 가도를 생겨지 마다 근데 조와 가와지레스네 되네 다교 조와 지라이 가네스질이 기그레스 진짜 나서는 깨알이야 근데 녀와를 깨발아서 발라 되는게 깨알에 왜요 말레스 되네 가실레 데리 끼도그레스 월다 되네 기그레스
If having made such a promise, then I don't fulfill that promise, if I don't strive to accomplish that promise, the result will be, then the third line, I will have betrayed all those sentient beings. The promise this bodhisattva has made is to each and every mother sentient being, without excluding one, without putting any ahead of others and leaving any behind. The promise was made to each and every mother sentient being. So if now this new bodhisattva either gives up on them or just can't be bothered, then this new bodhisattva will have betrayed them, deceived them. And if one were to deceive limitless beings, the result would be, and then we go to the fourth line, what kind of migration would I then take? What kind of rebirth would be the karmic consequence of betraying each and every mother sentient being? Surely it could only be rebirth in the lower realms.
지산다 심지한 탐지기 된다래야 심지한 탐지기 된 상주고보 토바지기 심지한 탐지 내 상계에서 동화 세제 심지한 탐지 코르 동화를 줘제 상계에서야 고기인 대고긴 자딩에 심지한 상주고보 토바지기에서 케렌 담자가레스 디마제 심지한 탐지기 되는 안에 상주고보 토베지도 저 바로도 치면 랍기에서 케렌 도시네 케렌 담자 제바로 와서 되네 담자 제네 되네 냠는 주위 냠는 지야 마주바이나 마주 주바 마제바이나 네 심지한 담제 라 고고땅하다 심지한 담제 고고땅와 최고래 심지한 담제 류바인스 고고땅와레스 제자디네 genza 녀미 침모사고레스 녀바 침모사고레 제자 녀바 침모사와이다 개와 치마 나솔 지게 기루레 나솔 기레스 거다 텐돌레 기마마 녀와 나솔 마기루레스 디스모다 단다.
The meaning of this fourth verse in brief then is that this Bodhisattva made a sincere promise. They weren't coerced to make this promise, that no one insisted or encouraged them. This they did based on their own analysis and investigation. And they made this promise to each and every mother sentient being with sincerity. I will become a Buddha so that I can lead you to a state freed of suffering, lead you to attain the state of Buddhahood too. And this was a sincere, heartfelt promise. And with this promise was also the promise to engage in the deeds of the Bodhisattva, the activities of the Bodhisattva. But if one were not to do so, the result is one has deceived all these beings. And surely only greatly non-virtuous, surely following from such a greatly non-virtuous betrayal, rebirth in the lower realms will follow.
지산다 심전 탐지 류바레시 심전은 저 고가당 와서 차바 있는데 심전 세대 타예바 장매바 빠도매바지 인자 되네 심전 탐제리아 안 고가당 와도 준시바로 차바 있나 되네 디바디게 침보치고 책으로 가서는 심전 지글 고가당 준시바 제발에 심전 타예발이야 빠도매바지리아 준시바 ane ko hata wa na divash pa do me ba diva chimba sa go ro ba dine zada dus chene sunga nyeba chimba ngure sa ti disu go.
Because we've all long since accepted that lying is non-virtuous, or deceiving others is non-virtuous. So if deceiving a single person is non-virtuous, how much more so if one were to deceive limitless sentient beings? Surely such an act would be greatly non-virtuous.
Adi dandala da garje janshi semba namji ganes nyamsin lingo ore sine samno gongbo shede dine samdang gore so ta ganzu she samajana dine ge samno dang gore 제자 다 rowa semjen tamjelya ngi semjen tamjigi no sanju ko tobar jigi semjen tanju hoyu dungal jeje sanje sala gugi sine kelen damja jebare 제자 당이 janshi sembe janshi komyada janshi be jewa paru de chimbala lapje nyamneji yabosh majeba ineda nge semja tamjelo ko hotaya da semja tamjelo junshi ba chasares 제자 dine zada semja tamjelo junshi na da yabo gyneyo mare dine semja tamjelo junshi ba nga dibachi mo nyabachi mo sagres 제자 da nga nyabachi mo saksona ne kovala nga sona kiejenen ne soso dunga nyong bade yimaje masean dele nga sona kebaine dine semjale pando yachen bu ju toya yo mar de yongchi bu yu rasare se dine gi gongba shene samna daje ne ane jenshi sembe jeba paro de chimba jula la ya dang ane nyamne jele bechen nang go re se da gongba she ha de samna du shen daje ne ane nyamne nang go re se ji sung go ba da jenshi semba de gi du nang go re se ji.
The reason or the meaning that a new bodhisattva would take from this verse is that because it's written for or composed for that new bodhisattva, understanding how they would have been reflecting over an extensive period of time, coming to make this heartfelt decision. Each and every mother sentient being who's cared with me, who's cared for me with such tenderness, I take responsibility for your welfare. I take responsibility for you being guided to achieve complete freedom from suffering. This is my own personal commitment to you, and to you, and to you. The Bodhisattvas made this promise directly to each being. And to fulfill that promise, the Bodhisattva has committed to becoming a Buddha, and to become a Buddha, helping beings as they spiritually develop. The Bodhisattva has promised to engage in the Bodhisattva activities. Having made such promises, if the Bodhisattva were to now betray them, betray these beings who are relying on this new Bodhisattva, who are looking to this new Bodhisattva with hope, how could this not be anything but greatly non-virtuous? And something of such great non-virtue could only lead to rebirth in the lower realms. So the Bodhisattva would reflect in this way so as to strengthen their resolve, strengthen their determination not to be overwhelmed by the magnitude of the promise they've just made.
labje de chi cha ju sem ge ju sem jo ba la lab gi se khlen dam ja che de ne ju sem bi jo ba la lab ya da de ne ge nyam la ma che ba ju sem dong wa la so ba ma gong ba la so ba chen ju sem dong wa la so ba che ba yin de ne sem ja de jo go ta wa cha go re di po chi ne ba chi ma sa go re es de za de ne chi gyo ma re se de gon da du se ne du se ne go ba da lab ja so ma so na.
The advice for us to take from this is Shantideva is saying to us, you have given rise to an aspiration to become a bodhisattva. Do not let go of that aspiration. You may not yet be a bodhisattva, but that is achievable for you. But don't let go of your aspiration. Guard that aspiration, because for your level, abandoning that aspiration can be likened to the bodhisattva abandoning their bodhicitta. You have this precious aspiration. Strengthen it. Build on it. Don't let it go to waste.
rāngā xiān sēmjā tam jīla pāntuā gyāchī mū chūk tuyā dā rāñī samtā wē na rāñī sāngyō gōpāng tūbyō chē dō gyō tsōsā jībjāng chāsāng jī tūyō bā dā pāmbā chūk nē pāmbā bē mā dā gyāchī mū chūk tuyō rō bā dā chē sā dīnī kī sēm pāmbā gyāchī mū chūk tuyō dī sēm dī dā jī ñam nē jē mā tū bē na dā jī pāmbō dā gyōng chī mū shū rō bā dā jī gyōng chimbo shu chaga rwa. Dine zang gyong chimbo ragi res, dine saya de sungo rwa. Chiza dine zang zuki jidin bali na nga zul ya chala da rinna chimbo shu chi yo ba che, da di dago ya wuma jeba che ne la ju ba dang chola dang ba gyong chimbo ra song ragi rwa da. O nga dine chala ya wu shu chi yo de, nga dine che la song shu, chola dwa she pe gyong chimbo ra song ragi rwa da. O di na xin da nga ju chanchu sem gyula ge, chanchu sem 제가 바로 신발 납시 되니게 kelен 남자지 길에 깨봐 있는 되냐면 마지막 샤샤바는 야게 마다면 배 용치 모래 송거로 와다 된다니 뭐지.
For those who have this aspiration for bodhicitta and strive to fulfill this aspiration, they will now already be engaging in the activities of the bodhisattva, the six perfections, to the best extent they can. And from this, so much benefit will already be achieved for oneself in this life, through one's ongoing spiritual development, progressing ever closer to becoming a child of the Buddhas, progressing ever closer thereby to attaining Buddhahood oneself. But even more importantly, to whatever level this aspiration has arisen within one, that will be matched with a wish to be of benefit to others, to be of benefit in a meaningful way to others. And as one strives to develop the mind of enlightenment within and to practice the six perfections, this heart wish that one has developed, this wish to be of meaningful benefit to others, this will be fulfilled. And from this, one will feel that one's life's purpose is being accomplished. One will know one is living a life of great meaning. So just like in society, if someone happens to gain great wealth but wastes it, that would be a deep shame. Likewise for ourselves, whatever level of aspiration we have generated, guard this, protect this, and develop it ever further.
무디지 냠는 제고레스 디제바이나 아주 판에 침보레 제가 디니 제마도 바이나 네 셈게제 안 지게 되는 냠는 제마도 바이나 안 지게 경침보레 냐바 가서 경침보라고 그래서 두신다 더나 인보들 마주이네 자주생이 판에 섬다 자주심 셈게 담자제 되네기 안 켈린 제외나 무디제 안 되네기 냠는 제고레스 디마제바이나 네 소소래 경침보라고 그래서
For ourselves, take this as encouragement from Shantideva to continue to reflect on the benefits of bodhicitta, so that the aspiration that we have to become a bodhisattva, that this continues to grow. This way, we strive intentionally to develop our yearning to become a bodhisattva. And as this grows, utilize or express that yearning through engaging in the activities of the six perfections, being of benefit, seeing ourselves being or experience ourselves being of benefit. In this way too, we serve to guard the aspiration we have developed, and we ensure that it does not decline. And it would be, if the aspiration we have generated, if it were to decline, that would be such a loss. Now, reason is presented to establish that. This then is the fifth verse. If even a common or insignificant thing that one has mentally intended to give is then not given to that person, leads to rebirth as a hungry ghost, the Buddha taught.
ni dangbo susura samna ngi de kolya khala jigin sada solya kolya dini chala te robo jigin sembege dangbo duchi nga samlo shitang ngobo phabo junje lang de dini gi samlo ta jigin sembe samta deni yigi chimbar samche ne se de dini gi ngobo junje ji na yigi chimbar susura ngi dini jigin sembe samlo khorshi dangbo samlo ta je 지긴 삼에 삼다다 잘 나온 거 돼요 말다고 지긴 삼다와 근데 삼다네 미강 진벌 미제 봐서도 되니게 삼다 미디기 강제세기 유 강사 될이야 미될이야 지긴 세배 삼다와 나신지 맞대바 있나 안에 가르쳐기려나 안에 내야 이다 줄소나 되네 맞대바네 이다 예 줄이에스 제가 이다르기 이다 제리야 안에 디기 제보 디기 안에 이다르기 이런 거래서 이제 송요래서 가와 송요래서 너나로 송요래서 상이 좀 내리 송와래지.
The verse then is the meaning of the verse is so looking at the first line, if even a common or insignificant thing, so we can think of something of that is common, that is not of any significant value. So we think of some food, perhaps some groceries or a cooked meal. If we then, the second line, that one is mentally intended to give, we then have the wish to give that to someone. And for whatever reason, maybe someone in need, maybe offering a friendship, but we've developed a wish, we've made this decision, I will give that. So only as far as activity has gone, we've just made a mental decision, I will give this. Then the third line, and then what one has decided to give is not given to that person. This then, the karmic cause that is created, if it ripens as a propelling karmic imprint, it leads to, the fourth line, leads to rebirth as a hungry spirit or hungry ghost. And this is something that comes, that is hard to recognize for ourselves, but it has a valid source. And the source is the sutras, a teaching from the Buddha. It's from, in particular, the Sutra of the Close Placement of Mindfulness.
pen kong rina chimbo member chunjuro sigurwa deni ge da rina chimbo ine da dile ti ji diba ye baro da rina chunjuro chine sosu ge te tuya ge niba rina chiju chunju ne den te wa sembe dambo samna ta yi chimbo sosu samna ngi de la jegi sebe sem ning sem pa jegi sebe samna ta sa ne da dan sa nan je ya sem ju wa ta je ne ma de ba sha ba ina ani mi di ge ma de ba sha na deni ge 미디 가와치 그랬으네. 다 가르치고서 이다기에 규사바래. 제가 개와치마 안에 이다리 기로 그래서 어두신 도저 많이 샤나라 되는 송바래서 되는 이보를 디스투와 제가 되니 인자 제된 되니기 뭐보 충충지 파바지 되니 제기서 맞아봐이나 디버치 뭐 사지 이다기에 기교여봐이나 제가 심전 대신이래. 심전 탐제려야 이 심전 탐제려야 안에 가서 오래. 대화, 띵기 대화, 탈배우고 한 띵기, 탐지견배우고 한 띵기, 안에 가서 오래. 원대고 한 띵기는 켈렌 남자 제제 안에 두시네 맞아봐 있나? 되네 디고 친구 싸야 이임을 와서 오다.
The meaning is, if one has made a decision to give something to someone else, even something of no real value, such as just food or something else that is commonplace or insignificant, if one has made the decision to give it to someone, but then does not do so, then changes one's mind, decides not to do so, just that creates a karmic imprint that can lead to rebirth as a spirit. So if that is the case, what about the promise that the Bodhisattva makes to lead all sentient beings, without exception, each and every one who has shown them such care and kindness, to a state freed of suffering, to their own individual liberation or even the omniscient state of Buddhahood. If the Bodhisattva were to turn away from that promise that also has been made mentally, how great then would the negative karma be?
제가 되니게 한국어 바바디게 지긴스네 케일엔제네 마데바 있나 네 지긴스베 담보 삼론 마 바제게 삼론 단사체 취수 마데바 있나 되네 나 이다게 규차그레세도 디 가르친 지고 말씀 마데게 소소레 세나기 용으로 세나게 와인자 아니 바마데바로 마데바인자다 세나게 와디 세나디 이다게 규르와 지서 세나세디 규디 제부 가와레세 이다게 규레세 월체자 세나디게 제부 이다게 그래서 제가 내내자 세나기 거래서 디마테바디 담보 찌긴 삼단 치수 마테바디 세나지는 세네왕 마케바인자 마테바인자 아니 세나 샤바 개와인자 세나디 당나서에 가와기 규차고서는 이다게 규차고래서 제자다 뭐바디 이다게 냐가 요래서 손에 드신 거로 봐. 세나 the thing in this year, Tambodima, the Jelia in the
So, in an instance such as this, one has made the decision to give something to someone else, but then, due to the arisal of the self-centered attitude of miserliness, one decides not to. That self-centered attitude of miserliness that has stopped your beneficial act, this leads to, this creates an imprint that can lead to rebirth as a spirit.
Dine zadang zuge dine mongulung gorwa dang zu dine ge yang si yong ya cha gorwa ji pa ji semne kelin je sa we che le ya an yuwa da je ma tu ba mongulung gorwa da dine ge je ma tu ba dile yumjen ro ji mongbu yor ba ka shin ne sen na chi ne je ma tu ba yung gure ka shin ne ya ji so so ya gang an che je an di twan ne je ma tu ya yong si ge ro da.
There are also not only there are many in the various instances where one may decide or have the wish to give something and decide to give something to someone, but then not do so. There could be many reasons for that. So what we've been speaking about thus far is reasons such as miserliness, but there could be other reasons such as actually I can't afford this. I would suffer a loss if I were to do this. It would be an error if I were to do this. That could be another reason for not giving what one has already decided to give.
That's been a society dolor, socially dolor, she was a dolorima, Michelachilia, Jackie, Tangi Colia, Rochi, Holtigin, Sempi, some dance Harachelia, and then Mate Paratilia, and the society dolodi, made Sivala Sobatan Kumasho, Meva Chasona. That's also a busy time here. What that Jinza, Susugi, Duloka, and Meva, the Chow, and that, or that did Terra Samaritan Aram Beach down on the Aran by the Pameva Chas, that ding Aran Beach down with somebody, some chair, and so Bishop Dondalia, Mateva Chadi, Yungrua. She said, the Mateva Chawa, the Carson Colia, Serna Jj, Teddy Meva, the legal markers, and Sosugi, Dulo, the Meva Chas, Nerab Sosolia, and it's Karsore Geshe so Chava, Zadi, Yenjenda, or Temadova Chas or Duatanwa.
For example, if one looks in one's wardrobe and sees it's really a bit full, I can offer all of this to someone I know that's impoverished or to a charity, and one has now made that decision. But between making that decision and then carrying it out, one's home gets burgled, and the vast majority of one's clothes are stolen, leaving you with very little. Those older outfits that you were going to give, maybe that's all that's left. Now, what to do? There, you would have changed your mind, because now you need these clothes. Before, they were an abundance. That's no longer the case. Now you need them, otherwise you have nothing to wear. So there we see, whilst the activity is identical in that one has made a decision to give and then one does not, one changes one's mind. The motivation is entirely different. It's not an afflictive motivation of miserliness. Rather, one's circumstances have radically changed.
Robache Benangula Soba Des Rojeg, Robacheva, the Jalalos Teg, Robache Killinje, Jag Killinje Bene, Yan Jiggy Negaptilia, you call Marginelli, the Mishandachila, Ganga Cheche, Gay Chewa, Chevena, then Ben Jedinigi, Chevena, or Gichun, some other Negap Qualia Gay Che to say, which you put the Jag Killinje, Nashandachil Cheshavena, the chorus and percentage. Jadi meba chago ma ko yuwa ta de ta kar course ne ge chuchunga sam da je phan ji le phan do chewa yue ba yin za ji de le ne ga ma de ba na ji ji phan do ga ga nga chunga ji de le ga nga che yue ba ga nga che se ya ge dan da le ge che dan da ne ga du shi ne zhe xia wei ne yan ji zhe yan na ji yi da ge ge gyu sa cha ge ma ro.
Further illustration would be if you were going to give something to someone, you've made the decision, I will give this to you, but then before one physically makes the offering, one meets or encounters someone else whose need is greater. Then you only have enough abundance to help one, but this person whom you've more recently encountered, their need is far greater. You may well then decide, actually, this first person, it was really perhaps it was just an act of kindness that I was going to make this gift to them, but this other person really is in need, and I cannot help them both, but the second person has a far greater need. Then one decides to not give to that first person, but to give to the second person. Again, with this illustration, the motivation, the afflicted motivation of miserliness is absent. Rather, one still wants to give, one still has an altruistic attitude, but one sees there's greater benefits because this person has far greater need.
미디기 제스 미디기 베주 로봇다한테 아니 라신이가라 강한테야기 팬에게 잡라 강한 체주 영화여 봐 하고 소바네 한 유화다지 오다디 전에 콜리아 강한 그 강한 쇠서 그 야보시 삼만에 삼주 유화다지 한마디바래 용루바데 근데 제비나 나디테디 콜리아 센나지 마테바 책요 바로와 김체다 거 가자다 데니기 통비도네 델리아 팬팬발에 네바체 용구요바이나 디마테바이네 아직 니엘 대화 삼바이네 지수마르베 교다베네 닌디네 이다 예 유사야지 요마르바다.
A further illustration would be if you have made a decision to give something to someone, but then you decide not to give it because you think actually they will put it to not put it to good use. In fact, some harm may follow. They may, for example, if one gives money, they had planned to give money, but one recognizes actually they may well use it in a way that's negative. Then one chooses not to give to this person. But again, the motivation is not that self-centered attitude of miserliness. Rather, there's a valid reason of not wanting to cause harm.
안디니 자다 디니기 마테게 당보테게 삼담이네 치수 마테베 김전 디니기 지게 거바당 가세 원기게 누시네 콜마테베이나 근데 아이다 세나 체고 말에 세나기네 마기바 체고 말 이다기베 규체고 말 이나다 삼로디 마테베이네 내가 마테바레데 이나 땅 데모마노 콜디메서 베 삼로디 튜니티메 땅이 디잔다틴다 콜 마음 티메서 베 삼로디 타야 메바레 제데 제선다 내가 되는지는 인자 다 몽변 소수가 강아 소수기 되지 소수를 내가 가변에 소수 여바도 매와 차선나 다 소수 오당한 내가 말하는 고도 파주 제사 말 제사 제는 지금 제약이 지금은 선배 교왔다 베나 다 가르쳐서는 어쨌든 콜제 고고데 내가 말하는 비주 땅 고고도 이네 몽 바나이 고고브레드 콜지기 나선배 삼도도 다 자오기니 지금에서 되니게 삼로디 타체 우두신 삼다교 말해서 니나신다데 계체 되지 현실 되고 내가 현다지라 판도체에 대한 계체 여바 현다지라 마대전 오다등에 대한 콜리아 계체도 콜리아 판도 강아체도 콜리 강아세는 콜리아 되스타 등의 제리아 제마 코너를 지긴 선배게 삼마도 당이고 제사 유사 콜 균직메세베 삼다요 말해제 니나신다데 가지고 콜테베나 그 베주 로바타자 라진니가라 라자 셈제 신헬야 강아테야다 코너 동아 침보기에게 냥아 여바다 마테바이네 때 내가 되니시 되기메 뭐바다 코로나 되니기 냥아 되면 맨날 되기 선배 삼다오마 다균이 되기메 선배 삼로디 다 교와 삼로 바 균제요 말해서 당하지.
With some of these illustrations where one had made the mental decision to give, but then did not for a reason that is not one of miserliness, for a valid reason, such as, for example, where you previously had an abundance, but then something happened, and now you no longer have an abundance, so one cannot offer. In that case, as well as in in the case where you met someone of greater need, so you chose not to give to that first person, but rather to this person in greater need. So in illustrations such as that, as I've already said, changing one's mind there and not giving is not an act of miserliness and therefore is not non-virtuous. But one should also not cut the wish of helping that first person that one either wanted to give one's excess clothing to, or the first person, or the person you're going to give to but then decided to give to someone else. Don't abandon them. Don't think, oh, well, I've made my offering to someone else and that's me done. Hold on to the aspiration. In the future, when I have an abundance again, I will look out for them. They were in sufficient need that I wanted to help them. And I haven't been able to now, but when the opportunity comes again, I will do so. So this is important. Where one changes one's mind, one does so temporarily, but therefore with the understanding, in the future, I will help. But again, as the verse explicitly says, even where one is wanting to give something that's insignificant, such as just some food, but then decides out of miserliness not to give it, perhaps to keep it for yourself, this is non-virtuous, and such an imprint will lead to, should it ripen as a propelling karma, lead to rebirth in the lower realms, a rebirth such as a hungry spirit.
Delia, Dambotewa Sambaine, Chisu, Mateva Chelia, Gumjena, Gacha, Gueva, Chimbi Tony, and then Mateva, Mahomba, the Corona, taking some generap in the Mateva, the Semicush Mateva Shabana, that is Sene Ongi, Sena Makiabainza, did I give you Kuchara Chago Marwa, Chisa, Dini like Cavardua.
Just to make sure it's understood, that if one changes one's mind about making an offering, but for a reason that is not afflicted, certainly not one of miserliness, then it is not creating a cause, an unvirtuous cause that would lead to the lower realms.
Diwachimbo Sajin, Ida Gigri Sonsha said, Sonsha Dineza, Pijanal in the Sonsha, and Donda Tahara, some Dashabina, and not to Chimochagi, Yangamudua. This is not the Pijana Sonya, Donald Sonya, the Donda, Kanichila Conchus, some Dinichil mean some Sunga, but the Jihago, 6 some Jibor, 6 to whose toy, Donda, the Chasan Jibo, or that got. Killing that Koran Beach Dang to Mat Gemma or something sometime, Magic Debate, Taco Idaliki, and your Kirs and Dr. Chaya Marwa, just that Dineza, Sigi, Pejinala, Sick in the Sunshine or Dana, Dondak and the Chillet in the Sunkor, de how go I get Chimochagor.
The sutra quotation is very literal, similar to what is said here, that if you choose not to give something that you've already decided to give, then the karmic result is rebirth in the lower realms. It's important, though, that one becomes educated, as well as thinking about the meaning of the Dharma, or thereby, through one's education, thinking about the meaning of the Dharma, so that it doesn't come to a mistaken understanding from relying on the literal presentation of words, but rather on the correct understanding of the meaning.
On that you don't that thing on that it is Shivana Tambo and Jay Samlota, Jay Shasan Samlona dance having a chiso and so Suke Sene Gage, Sena Gage, you are some of you are Matavina, and is that you check that Dorje Shishavana, the Nani Bodhisattva don't that.
But in brief, the meaning as here is, if through mindfulness one does not give something that one has decided to give, this is non-virtuous and creates the causes that will lead to future suffering. Then the sixth verse. How can I then expect to go to the higher realms if I betray all sentient beings, having from my heart invited them as guests to unsurpassable happiness?
Lana maybe in Devala, Sambatabi Junior near said.
The English we need to read from the fourth line up. So looking at the third and fourth line first, having from our heart invited them as guests to unsurpassable happiness. This means that one has, by inviting guests to unsurpassable happiness, we have made the promise. We will lead all beings to attain the state of unsurpassable happiness, the happiness of liberation and enlightenment. But not only that, included or implied here too, is that one has promised to lead beings to the states of temporary happiness, rebirths in the higher realms. So this is the promise that one has made, the commitment that one has made.
Tawege tablam tienje, lam yamle rimba tienje, nyamsu lenje du, and the Kiwachima Wondio go to Yungurua, Chisa Dinigi Nyamsu lenje, Kosu Tobo, Toguyo Baza, Kosu Java said, Johnny, Dondai Java. Dini Dinashinda, Tarbio go on Toya, Sanjo go on Toyagi, tablam tienje, Nyamsu lenjo, Nyamsu lene, and Nyamsu lembatine, Jebu du Tangele, the Toyo du, Kosu like Ungele, the Java said, Java Nashin to check what I do. Lana maybe Devala Sambata Junior Nes and Jundu Nes, Jiggy says, Jundu Newa Shore Lagurwada. Some other digging says, the Jundu Nes, you call the Jundu Nevasana, Simjan two shores, digging like a digging lana, one you go one digging, Tarbio go one digging, Sigurwada. Chisan Jeta, they can stay set down the Jala Javanashima, the sick Jundu Nes. Don't I need border sick? Don't I the Karshi Warsana? Simjan Tamji, one do never want to go on a quiggy, said the Jundu near, said Quiggy, said Quig Java, said Quiggies. Just as Simjan Tamji Tarbi go on a Quiggy, Simjan Tamji, Koi Dunga Tala, Sanjo go on a Quiggies in killing by the was or Genegi, Lana maybe Devala, somebody training, and this is to Sim in Taban, Lamsa, Sambatabane. So you get round to some Makai, maybe Shandin Pachi, someday she has some Jatamji, Koi Dungal, Sanji go on, Quiggies, Lana Bedeva, Quiggies, and Denegi, and Lucene, killing Pachagurova, Lana Bedewala, Sambata Junior, said the Shi Shevati, the Jibaru Chekdonarus.
The primary promise, whilst the Bodhisattva will do all that they can to help ease the suffering of others, the primary promise they make is to help beings attain unsurpassable happiness. And this is done not through the giving of gifts. So if we think of the previous verse, in the second line there's the word to give. So what the Bodhisattva is primarily promising to give, whilst the Bodhisattva will give all that they can to help beings' suffering be reduced, they primarily are promising to give guidance, to teach them, to guide beings how to create the causes of virtue, in particular, how to radically transform their mind. And in this way, to guide them to attain for themselves unsurpassable happiness, the states of liberation and enlightenment. This is the primary gift, the gift of giving teachings and guidance in how to transform the mind. This primarily is what the Bodhisattva is promising to give.
Bendigo Drundunye, that's a Samba Taban Pa Drundunye Chipa, Bendigo, Mundio Gobanda, Gele Gobadi, Jiggy says, Jiggy, Drundu, Jiggy, Kalen Banashin, and Draw Tamjelia, Matebaina, Sembajua, Matebaina, then Simjan Lubaris, Lucianus, Gohortawaris, Tesa, Jiggy Nambo, Jiggy, Niba Matebaina, Gohortawari, Denisa. Doatamji Luciana, the Nig Lubaina, and Karchagrilane, Nemi Chimbo Saje, Digi, and Nandrojiga, Drogura, Droguram, Soso, Dead Akase, Dedrojiga, Droguram, said Soso Dinrulia, Gigribe, Gigimares, Chizangason King, Nyawalma Girugri, Sachi, Sumor, Dedrojigam, Droguram, Dedro Gigribes, Gigimar, Wasiorda, Chizanganaga Girs and Nyawalma Girugri, Sachi.
The inviting of beings as guests, the meaning behind that is one is inviting them to a festival or a feast of teachings, where one is promising over lifetimes to guide them to the state of Buddhahood. Then continuing with the verse, but working up with in English the second line, if then I were to betray all my kind mother sentient beings, then the first line, how can I then expect to go to the higher realms? How can one expect to have a good rebirth as the result of deceiving or betraying or lying to all mother sentient beings? Surely only rebirth in the lower realms, even in the hell realm, will follow.
Penese Mobo Paibaji Party in Samataji, Chisuan, Jigge, Samba Juatanjo, Sosuke Sena, Yadangara, who they call here, Jigmes and Pigatiniga, San Sena, Samtaje, Mateva Chevaina, Dini, the Sena Javasa Idaki, Kucha, Mason Idali Gig to us, Mason my Idal Makidu to us, Mobo Chunjunji, the Ketia, Kalenje, Matevina, Ida Gig to us. The Niki Chunjun J. Kalenje, Matevina. The Niki Diva Chimbo Saguina, the Simjan Tamjelia, and Dedia, Jesadia, Simjan Tamje, Simja Bodume Bashire, and Deage Jala Masona, Deolana Meba, San Yoko, Choto Yuba, Dile, Chavashima, Diteage, Jipad, Consolia, Delo Gugin, Consul Delegate, Gugins in the Kalen Damja Jabar. The Negi, you de la Jesage, you Chedu Java, Simjan Tamjere. And the Jagida, Miji Chisedi, and Lana Chodo Deva, Chodo Juba, San Yoko Padre. Chazan di Pajika, Dambosim, Tasim, in Tapaning, Jiggins, and the Dini Jiggins, Yamlej, Consudela, Giggins, Simja Tamja, San Yoko, Chiggins, and the Giggins, and the Samtaji, Shisu, Juataji, that Jitu Samara Shashavena, Masida, Simjan Padomebalo, Cohotaji, Jadina, Chunjuji, in the the Matevena Gagamar something Dingirua is that Jesegi you the mobile mason and Chodo maybe Chodo give it Deva, San Yelana maybe Deva San Yoko Padre. Chizan Timateva in the draw Tamjelo, Gohor, Simjan Tamjelo, Gohor Padum, Gohor Chimbushu Tare. Dines are dead never Chimbosagua. These are the Koala Gale, Nansol Gale, and Jignawa Gin Maduache, Digi. Devale take your name, Umar, Chazania, Newa Gere, says on Dusin Sumor, what I don't die.
These three verses then need to be looked at together, because the second two, the two we have on the board, these present the reason to establish the previous verse, the fourth verse. Because if, as we see in the fifth verse, non-virtue is created through merely not giving something of insignificant value, despite having made the decision to do so, what then can follow what then will follow if I were to turn my back on my mother sentient beings? These beings whom I've come to recognize so clearly are suffering. Recognize how they are suffering in so many ways, and they are helpless to deal with their situation. They are alone in lacking guidance and care, meaningful care. What kind of karmic results would follow for me if I were to follow such a heartless, self-centered attitude, turning my back on them in their time of need, in particular, when I've recognized their need? So this then, in brief, is the meaning of these verses.
And now, that changes in Mokoron to me, Yamlin Jihan to get some data is constant worse. That Donalava, and the Sanyi, Soya, and Jingo Juzi, Paje, Tambo Sam Taji, the Matepaina, Senachi Matepaina, Digi, and the Yaba Chimbosu, or as Ida Kiri, the new Suyo, Chesa, Dinina, and the Simjan Tamjeli, Dondala, near San Yoko Torachi, Simjan Tamja San Yoko Malakins, and Helen Tamja Jeje. Simjan Tamja San Yoko Malaki, Liangi, Donda to Laga de Majeba in that, and Ganis Dendrolia Mutiche, Dendro Kiche, Yamlan Chiche San Yoko, top two riches, and the top two Yagunim in the Dinecheva in Yang Masoling, Yawal Maki Dure, Dinezan, Yawala Kiavaina, and then Yamlinchi Yoko, Zogin, Rago Matis, Chesa Dinezang, Yongachimbushi Rasare, is that Mutiche and Dinege, Nikaleka Sayubina, Kaleka, Kalena Masembache, Yamlinchi, Sembeda, Duchine, Gomba Sam Taji, Horns to Duchine, Yamlin Nangores, Jisam Horns to Nangores, Nangores, and Nangandikida, the name Majians of the Dinechia said Sungurwada.
The way a bodhisattva then would, or the new bodhisattva would relate to these verses, is now being counted amongst the children of the Buddha. Shantideva is guiding this new bodhisattva to a quotation from the Buddha, wherein the Buddha said that if even giving something, where the Buddha said that not giving something of insignificant value, when one has decided to do so, creates a karmic cause that can lead to rebirth as a spirit. Then, based on that sutra quotation, you can understand through your intelligence that turning your back on mother sentient beings when they are in need, this can only lead to a rebirth in the hell realms. So recognize the potential loss, the very personal loss that you will experience, if you turn your back on them. So therefore, and then it really comes to the meaning here for the bodhisattva, do not be dispirited, do not lose heart. The path that you've chosen to undertake may be long, but it's greatly important and has great purpose. Do not lose heart, but continue to strive and serve others.
When they came here, that might give a Yamlin Jaya Harshawarasane, the she that the Mobo Chunse, Mobo Papa Chunse lunch, Yigi Chimba, some Jane, Megan Chimba Mijaba, either Yursuna, setting on some double Hazuli, Shelia, Mobo Chicken, Sipi, that's also get some down. Then you can see came out of your Stango Vena, that Gacha down Goba, Chiboyana, you are done machine. And you are not a country to do share what is Sosuke, Sambanaji, some Tambo, Susujigin, Simple Sambanashinje, and Pakanti to do Jehores. Gesi that Tiniki Gacha, Ungopa, Chimbutone, and Jego, said Jemo, some of you are down by Juve in there, the Tawkin Colia, Robert Chigme, some Tagio Martin, Mohon Banada. That didn't have to live Gacha, don't go back to the J and Jen and Tigimidu, and then that Mohon Banaya Horoslia, Chick. The nigger Gacha don't go about the Gacha the Medu, and go call a Rochigins and be some Stangores, Dushin and some Daje, Dangores, Kisi, Danganjugi, Nerap, Dambote, Kilinche, Jelian, Jemo, which is Senache Majebache, Senache Jemodu by that Kachagora, Jetiba Sagora, the Senamia Nerap, Gacha don't go big Tony, call it Jena, and the Jikuen Chawatan. 강아 체 지금 요번에 니 되는 마태 받아 야 그거 소소에 딜레 시행라 제체로 돈에 안 걸려 유왔던 거 잡아이네 저 마티바 잡아이네 안 될이야 삼로들 오다 다디 내갑들 되니기 차기도 된잖아 뭐 바나 그럴래 로봇이 인생에 삼는 다지 두신의 삼당고 그래서 되네 삼담에 나는 저기 니바사고 말 디바사고 말와 세상 걸 저기에 sempre 삼로들 리고 말에 디자 디네자 두신의 삼당고 그래서 지가 지기도 된다 디샤고 하는 중에 냠내 줘야래.
The way for practitioners such as ourselves to relate to these three verses, practitioners who are still far from becoming bodhisattvas but nevertheless aspire to enter the bodhisattva paths, the way we should relate to this is firstly recognize that this is a quotation from the Buddha. So therefore there is validity to this. And why we need to rely on a quotation from the Buddha, because this topic of karmic consequence is a very hidden topic, a very hidden phenomenon. It is not something we can perceive for ourselves. So therefore, we should be relying in these situations on the quotations of the Buddha. Moreover, we need to watch our mind, be conscientious. Do not, and thereby do not, allow yourself to be guided by self-centered attitudes such as miserliness. What is important is helping others. What is important is recognizing the needs that others have and the opportunity where we have it to be of benefit, and thereby to do so. To continue to develop the understanding that the purpose of our life is to serve others, to be of benefit to others. And therefore, the purpose of our skills and our talents, our time and our energy, is to benefit others, both directly and indirectly through our own self-development. Moreover, the purpose of our possessions, especially our abundance, is to be of benefit to others. This we need to develop, this understanding ever more within. And moreover, we also must bear in mind from the explanation I gave, is that we should always rely on our wisdom. We should use our wisdom or our intelligence to think for ourselves. And even where we've made a decision to do something, if it then turns out, for a valid reason, not to be the best course of action, not to follow it. So rely on our wisdom. And moreover, if one does decide not to help, not to give, where one had made the decision previously to do so, ensure that you do not turn your back on this person. Ensure that your motivation is for changing your mind is free of any self-centered attitude, that your reasoning is sound. And ensure that you do not turn your back on those you have now only temporarily decided not to help. Because if one does turn one's back on someone, one is thereby acting in a way that's contrary to the Bodhisattva ideal, contrary to the person we want to be.
니바 디게리네 아 주게 삼다일다 아 주길라 전시 심문이 길게요 말 매반자다 아 주가스면 내가 아 주이네 더 전시 생이 판에 삼당 가브리엘이야 아 주게 지기 지 전시 심 심문에 맞게 바이나 다 지기 전시 심게 알아서 받아 되네기 용고로와 되네자 되네기 여바이나다 네 심제 다딩이 전시 심 드링게 제 다 전시 심 도시님네 제 도시 심게 바 제상에 무퇴제 전시심의 냠내지 세바 냠내지에서 보고기야다. 그생이다 샘제 탐지도나 산요고바 토버쇼 삼다지 다마당에 샘제 탐지도나 삼다마 장에디 냠내 맞아봐이나 는 샘제 탐지 고고 땅와로나 샘제 탐지를 준시버로 차사래 세상 앞에 지게 디바치면 제 디바치마 사사 되는 장에 샘제 대야 무퇴시 소소 냠내지 세바디 도시네 삼다야다. 그지다 디링데 전시심자디 랑 저저 라다 셴심제 탐제를 편바 루티게 심제 탐제 고려 동아 타다를 저제 상교고마 토예기 유 데네기 장시sem들이 제자다 데네기 지연대 야보 라신이가라 팬디 줍투게 디기 줍투게 데 삼로디 소수게 냠는 지역 고급지라디 따딩이 파르샤제 마제바 샤샤벤데 베마시 용천부 너지오지라사레 삼다제 누신의 삼다쟁한주네 데네기 모티제 안에 야네 야도 삼다 고급 누신의 야네 삼당고래서 누신의 삼다야리 삼다쟁한주 냠는 지역고래서 중국어와 당하는 주길 납절해야 돼. 아디미 소야딜레 전유스모 코로나주게 삼나타나다 전유스모 코로나주야 갈롭나하다 대야생 안주 갈롭다 지바 마르와 아주 미고라 카가인자 그 나즈레 길로 찍마도 체가마도 맨메 길로 주요행들이 계시디 백거라 같이 지고 치숑나 쉬서와 제자다 데네 소야데나 다디 전유스모 발바두스 갈롭나레 콘주기 냠네 지다레스는 콘주기야 샤시베당 안주 레 가요 마르다 안주 레 메르와 제가 전유심바 칼로나다 전유심바 코로나 난고레스 코로나들 대신 직체 다 딜레 바항 주글 랍질레야데 안하수 딘 치고레서 랍질레메이나 아니 전유심비 냠는 제다데 신바 아니 전유심발이야 디마 게스시월라 침바다 산지 남기 두스나 까나나데 직나와다 데디 게스시월 침베 안하줄레야 칼롭나와임바 나신지나 안하줄레 칼롭나와 안하주이네 냠는 제 여바디 자루고로바다.
Furthermore, what we should take from what we've looked at tonight, so think in particular of the fourth verse, if having made such a promise I do not perform the deeds, I will have betrayed all those sentient beings, what kind of migration would I then take? So for ourselves, we need to reflect again and again on the benefits of bodhicitta. In the context of the text we're in, we may have looked at those a year ago, but keep reminding yourself of those many benefits, because all of you who are here or watching online, you do have a wish to generate bodhicitta. You have the wish to become a bodhisattva. This wish, of whatever strength it is precious. Even if it's sporadic and it's quite weak, it is still precious. Take good care of it, value it above everything else, and by recalling the benefits ever again, strengthen this wish, as well as thereby guarding it from declining. This mind that we have developed, of whatever strength it is, value it, see it as precious through recognizing its potential. Be aware of the kind of person you can be, this bodhisattva with a mind of great beauty, and then strive to be that person, to fulfill your potential. And then when you, in your daily life, you have the opportunity to help others, rejoice at your great fortune of being around others, of being around others in need, and embrace that opportunity with joy and help. So we are very different from actual bodhisattvas. We need to relate to these teachings which are overtly for bodhisattvas. We need to relate to them in two ways. One, relate to them for where we are right now as aspirants. And the second way is to relate to them through understanding what a bodhisattva is, to strengthen our aspiration to become a bodhisattva through understanding how they live. And in this way, whilst the weight of our minds of love and compassion inside is just probably in the grams when compared to the tons of the bodhisattva, nevertheless, in accordance with our capacity, emulate them. And where our capacity is too limited, generate the genuine aspiration to be able to emulate them. The aspiration in a sense that arises in you, it moves you. This is how the love and the compassion you have will be guarded. And not only guarded, at the same time it will grow and become ever more established. So this is the way that I've been presenting this text thus far and will continue to do so that you understand that Shantideva is teaching both his fellow bodhisattvas and aspirants such as ourselves.
Dinigira Nanjuga Samdai, that is you are a champion to do in the Kalap knowledge, is not Janjusem Sanjeta, that Janjusemba, the my Sanjeta, Yesichiwala champion, Horns to Dini Janjusemba Dustinel, Janjusemba taking him to Snangore, said that the Nigi Gombashi sometimes Janjusemba taking him to Snangore, some died. Dine and Jesu Irache, the Janjusemba, the new Gombashi, and the Janjusem Yamlin, and the Dushin, Chigore, Simjit to Gore, said Bayapore, some Jesu Irache, the Nesangeda, and the Jig, and Jessijuala Chimpiki, the name on Zulia, loved it not, Pam as a Yaposhu, you get in Chimpushui, said that Rashin Niga, the Pimbiga, Sosorang, Kuyu Dunga, Tada literature, Sanjo Kopon Toyagi, Tablam down. Ranchibu Maimba Simja, Tam Jella Pendu to be a tablam, Dine Sunshavadi, Bayapure, Dine Zada, Nanzula Dine, Jeba Sumadi, Dine Zang, and Ranzu Dusin, Susina, Dine Janjusem, Yamlen Jada, Jiki, Janjusem, Yukuno, Janjusem, Samdaya, Yukuno, Janjusem Utone, and Susuki Chimbada Surim Lasoba, Dinigi, Pembagang, to the Jede, Yamlen, Dinigi, Janju Nala Sumba Nashi, Janjusem Horos, Yamlen Jeba Nashi. Meya Denichi Tuba Jigin, Samje, that Dumba Geje, Sosuki, Denike Count to the Chewa, the Danganzuki, Digi, Danganzu 6 years, something Arzulia, Yamleja, the Sosu Arzu, Land, did what I didn't see who said. Jazada Sanjeta, Jessichiwala Chimpi, getting Jesu Chembada, Jajusemba, Koranzu, dus Yamlen Chigobadi, and Jesu Iranchia, Sosora in it, Konjugi Yamlen Chebanaji, Meya didn't Yamle Chigin Sepi, Dumbaki, Semju Gagin, Sosu Gang to Tutine, the J. Jamni Jocomiata, Jaju Semgoya, Jajumukunia Laje, Gunwaki, Dine Titone, and the Kawakari, Drutubena, Gang to the to a Jedida, and you get that the Junju look to Shebe, the Mars of Chazan to Shewadi, the Voodoo Tichagorwada. The nature to a Nedan, you get Junju, as you get Chin Jebi, the Donado to Gorwada, the Nejeva Neden, San Yet and Yusem Batamjigi, Monshe and the King or do see or do, or the Bay Opportunity Science, the Kawara Chagua, the Nedan, the Sajeda, lama Sayi never Cheba. And Choban and the Choto Yubains, to be Choba, Choto Yuba, Lamada, Sanya never Chebadi, then Choban and the Choba Choto Yuba Seura. The days on Tinjivana, Sanya, Lama never Chebaina, didn't Choba Choto Yuba Chagorwa. The Nijabena don't have to together, and I catch him to go around.
So when hearing teaching such as these, and wherein we hear about these remarkable beings, bodhisattvas, the purpose of these teachings is manifold. The purpose for practitioners such as ourselves is manifold, because hearing about these remarkable beings gives us inspiration to join them, to be counted amongst their ranks, to be amongst their peers, to be having the impact on others that they are having, and to recognize our great good fortune to live in a world where such beings still abound. And so from the inspiration that arises within, through seeing the qualities that they have, aspire to live in the way that they do, to cultivate the qualities of ethics and generosity and patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom, just like they do, in accordance with our capacity, in accordance with where we are now. And in this way, strengthen your heart. Don't be discouraged. Strengthen your heart and turn away from what distracts you from accomplishing what is meaningful. So in this way, sorry, sometimes it gets a little difficult inside. So in this way, we receive all the blessings of Shantideva and all the Buddhas in our in our own hearts. And to the extent that we generate these qualities within ourselves, again, just in accordance with our own capacity, know that this brings great joy to the minds of our teachers and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Oh yeah, that's what it sounded like.
No, that's good then. Yeah.
Okay, we'll stop there then tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.